Two little girls stood in a quiet corner of the airport, holding onto a worn-out suitcase. People kept walking by, no one noticed. Until a wealthy man stopped, and asked one question. That moment changed everything. One of the suitcase wheels was broken. It scraped across the tile floor as they moved, making a dry dragging sound that caught the man's attention. The older girl gripped the handle with both hands, pulling it with effort. The younger one followed close behind, silent, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. They were heading toward the check-in counter when the man slowed down. He had just stepped out of the VIP lounge. His shoes were polished, his shirt freshly pressed. His phone was still in his hand, a call just ended. But when he heard the sound of the suitcase dragging behind them, he turned and looked. He paused. "Is that suitcase heavy?" he asked, his voice low and calm. The older girl nodded. "Where are you going?" "To our grandma's," she replied, eyes not lifting. "No one's with you." She shook her head. He looked again at the suitcase. It was taped on one corner. The zipper was slightly off track. One of the handles was missing. Everything about it looked overused and left behind. "Where are your parents?" "Our mom is in the hospital." He waited. "And your father?" "Has not here." He didn't ask what that meant. He just looked at them for a moment longer. Then he lowered his phone and said, "Come with me." He didn't wait for a response. He turned and began walking toward a nearby coffee shop. The girls followed without speaking. At a small corner table, he motioned for them to sit. He ordered bottled water, 2 sandwiches, and some fruit. The food came quickly. The girls didn't waste time. They ate quietly, not looking up, finishing every bite. The man didn't speak. He sat across from them watching, not judging, not interrupting. Once they were done, he asked, "What flight are you supposed to be on?" The older girl reached into the outer pocket of the suitcase, and pulled out a folded printout. He took it, scanned the details, then reached for his phone again. "I need the departure gate for this flight," he said. "Also check the booking name." The call lasted under a minute. He turned back to the girls. "Did someone bring you here today?" "Yes," the older one said. "Ooh, our neighbor. He left you here." "Les." He sat back and exhaled slowly. He didn't look angry, just unsettled. "You shouldn't be here alone," he said. There was no reply. He stood. "Come on." And again, the girls didn't argue, they picked up the suitcase. He took the handle from the older one and pulled it himself. At the airport help desk, he presented the flight details. The staff asked a few questions. The man didn't explain much. Just showed the ticket and asked for confirmation. The girls were booked under a family emergency ticket. Their luggage allowance was barely enough. Their final destination was a small regional airport. The booking had been made that morning. "Who paid for this ticket?" the man asked. "We're not sure, sir," the staff replied. "It came through a third party. No name listed." He looked down at the girls. "Do you have your mother's phone number?" The older one nodded and quietly recited it. He dialed. It rang 3 times. A tired, breathless voice answered. "Hello." He identified himself only by first name and said, "Your daughters are here at the airport. Alone. I just met them." There was silence on the other end. I know," the voice finally said. "I didn't want to do this, but I had no one. I have to go in for surgery. There was no one else to take them." "Why didn't you call the airline, or the police?" "I tried. They said no minors without a guardian. But my neighbor offered to help. He said he'd take them through. He left them alone. I didn't know. I told him to stay until they boarded. I trusted him. I just wanted them safe." But her voice broke. The line went quiet for a moment. "I didn't want to scare them. I told them they were going on a short trip. I didn't say goodbye properly. I just couldn't." The man glanced at the girls. They were sitting on a bench nearby. The younger one leaning against her sister. "I want to see you," he said into the phone. "What?" "I want to come to the hospital." "Why?" He paused. "Because no one should have to make a choice like this alone." He didn't know why he drove. It wasn't planned. His flight was in 4 hours. And he had meetings scheduled. But he found himself in his car with the driver heading to the hospital. The girls stayed at the lounge. He left his assistant to sit with them. The hospital was only 15 minutes from the airport. When he walked into the room, the woman in the bed looked pale and smaller than her voice on the phone. There was an IV in her arm, and a thin blanket pulled over her knees. She tried to sit up but couldn't. "I didn't expect you," she said. He pulled a chair and sat beside her. "I used to think I had problems," he said. "Until I met your daughters." Well, she laughed once, just breath. Then wiped her eyes. "I was never supposed to be alone," she said. "My husband left us last year. My mother passed 6 months ago. I was working 2 jobs. I didn't see this coming. One minute I was fine, the next I collapsed." "What is it?" "A tumor. They need to remove it urgently. I'm lucky they even found it." "Are you scared?" She looked away. "Not for myself." He nodded slowly. Then asked, "Why didn't you tell them?" "What could I say?" "That they'd wake up one day and never see me again." "You could have told them the truth." "I thought I was protecting them. I didn't want their last memory of me to be hospital beds and tubes." He didn't reply. The silence hung between them like a curtain. She looked at him. "Are they okay?" They didn't cry. But they didn't smile either. She closed her eyes. "I don't want them to fly alone," he said. She opened her eyes again. "What?" "I'll take them myself. I have a meeting in the same city tomorrow. I'll reroute my trip." Her lips trembled. "You don't have to do that. I know." She didn't speak for a long time. Then finally whispered, "Thank you." That evening, the man returned to the airport. His assistant handed him the boarding passes. The girls had been given juice and coloring books, but hadn't touched either. He knelt beside them. "I spoke to your mom," he said. The older girl's hands froze on her lap. "She said to tell you she loves you. And that she's going to be okay." The younger one looked up. "Is she sick?" "Yes. But the doctors are helping her." The older one looked away. He sat beside them and said gently, "I'll be flying with you. I'll make sure you reach your grandma safely." They both stared at him like they didn't know whether to believe it. He smiled slightly. "You don't have to worry now. I'll stay with you the whole way." The flight was quiet. They were seated near the front. The older girl kept looking out the window. The younger one slept with her head on his arm. He didn't move the whole flight. When they landed, he guided them through immigration and into the small waiting area. An older woman stood anxiously near the entrance. When she saw them, she ran forward. The girls dropped their suitcase and ran into her arms. He watched from behind. The grandmother looked at him and mouthed, "Thank you." He nodded once. She pulled him aside and said, "I didn't even know they were coming until 2 hours ago." She didn't want to worry me. She booked the ticket herself. "She's brave," he said. "She always was. But this is different." He handed her an envelope. "She asked me to give you this. Medical documents, emergency contacts, school letters, everything." She held it tightly. Then whispered, "Will she be okay?" "I hope so." The girls were holding on to their grandmother tightly now, arms locked around her waist. He turned to leave. "Wet," the grandmother said. "What's your name?" He just smiled and walked away. That night, he sat in his hotel room, suit jacket still on, staring out the window. His assistant texted, "Tomorrow's meeting is at 10. Shall I confirm?" He didn't reply right away. Instead, he opened his phone and dialed the hospital. When the same tired voice answered, he said, "They made it. They're safe." There was a long silence. "Thank you," she whispered. He sat in silence for a few seconds more, then said, "If you need anything at all, just call." And he meant it. The car was quiet. The 2 girls sat in the back seat, their suitcase placed between them. One of the man's staff was driving. The man sat in the front, phone in hand but not using it. Outside, the city passed by in silence, wide roads, buildings flashing by. But inside the car, nothing moved except the girls' hands holding tightly onto the suitcase handle. They didn't ask where they were going. They didn't speak. The younger one leaned against her sister again. Her eyes were half closed. The car pulled into a long driveway. A hospital. The man stepped out first and looked back at them. "You can wait here. I'll be quick." The older one nodded. She didn't ask why he was going in. He walked through the doors, asked for her by name, and gave the room number. The hallway smelled like antiseptic and something metallic. He found the room easily. She was lying in bed, pale, her hand resting near the IV tube. Her face turned as he walked in, and for a second, she didn't speak. She just stared. "You came," she said finally. He pulled a chair closer. "I told you I would." Her eyes were swollen. Not from pain, but from holding too much in. "I didn't think anyone would." He didn't respond to that. He just looked at her for a while. "You really met them?" she asked. "I did. They were alone. They looked small. I didn't want that. I didn't plan it like this." "I believe you." She turned her face toward the window. "I've had this surgery scheduled for months. But when the date came close, I couldn't find anyone to take them. Everyone said no. My cousin stopped picking up. My neighbor, he was my last option. He said he'd help. He didn't." She nodded slowly. "I know that now." He leaned forward. "Do they know?" "No," she said quickly. "I told them it was just a trip. A short visit. I didn't tell them I might not be back for them." The silence in the room felt heavier than before. "I'm not dying," she added. "But I needed help. I just needed someone to take them for a little while. I wasn't trying to get rid of them." "I didn't think you were." She turned back toward him. "Why are you helping?" He hesitated. "I saw them. I heard the suitcase dragging, and I couldn't walk past." "I haven't done everything right," she said. "But I tried. I know." He stood. "Get some rest. I'll take care of them until you can. I don't even know your last name," she said softly. He paused at the door. "You don't need to. Just get well." He walked back out down the hallway through the front doors. The girls were still in the car. He slid into the front seat and nodded once. The driver pulled away. This time he turned around to face them. "I met your mom," he said. "She's okay. She's strong. She just needs a few days." The older one nodded slowly. "I'm going to take you somewhere safe for now. Just for a little while." Neither girl said anything, but the younger one gave a tiny nod. That was enough. They arrived at an apartment complex, quiet, clean. A security guard opened the gate without question. Inside, the elevator ride was silent. He opened the door to a high-floor unit. Inside, the air was cool. The space was neat. A small couch. A window with a city view. 2 bedrooms. A kitchen stocked with basics. He showed them where they'd sleep. Twin beds. A bathroom down the hall. Extra clothes folded neatly on a chair. The older girl touched the edge of the bed. "Is this your house?" "No," he said. "But you can stay here. It's quiet. Safe." They changed clothes and sat on the floor near the suitcase. He brought them warm food, not fast food, real rice, bread, and chicken. They ate slowly. Without speaking, but this time they looked up between bites. He didn't ask them questions. He just sat nearby, answering calls, sending emails, never leaving the room. When the dishes were cleared, he pointed toward the second bedroom. "You can sleep anytime. There's no rush." The younger girl had already curled into a corner of the couch, eyes fluttering. The older one stood, hesitated, then looked at him. "Will she call us?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "As soon as she can." That night, after they had fallen asleep, he sat near the window. His phone buzzed again. A client. A missed meeting. A message from his assistant. But he didn't answer. He looked at the small shoes by the door. The suitcase still taped at the corners. The little plastic hairclip on the coffee table. Somewhere between the dragging of a broken suitcase and a simple question at an airport, his life had shifted. He didn't know why yet. But he felt it. The next morning, he made them breakfast himself. He wasn't a cook, but toast, eggs, and juice were enough. They sat at the table quietly, watching him move between the stove and counter. "Do you have kids?" the older one asked, her voice barely louder than a whisper. He paused. Then shook his head. "No," he said. "I don't." She didn't ask why. Later that day, he arranged a video call with their mother. The screen flickered, and her face appeared. She was in a hospital gown, tired but alive. She smiled the second she saw them. "Mama," the younger one cried. The man stepped out of frame to give them space. He stood in the hallway, listening to their laughter, and the sound of a mother trying not to cry. When the call ended, he walked back in. The older girl looked at him. "Thank you," she said. He only nodded. He didn't ask how long they would stay. He just made sure they had what they needed. The girls got used to the routine quickly. Breakfast. Quiet time. A short walk. A call with their mother if the hospital allowed it. Some days she was awake and smiling. Other days, the call didn't come. The man started coming home earlier. Meetings were moved. Calls were taken on silent. His assistant asked questions, but he gave no explanations. The apartment had never felt like a home before. Now, there were signs. A small pink toothbrush in the bathroom. 2 cups with cartoon animals on the shelf. Tiny socks drying near the balcony window. One afternoon, the older girl asked if she could help with something. He was trying to fold laundry. Not well. She took over quietly, folding shirts with small, neat hands. He watched for a second and then went to make tea. He started bringing books. Simple ones. They didn't have many belongings, so he made sure they didn't feel the lack. A few puzzles, drawing pads, colored pencils. He noticed the younger one drawing in the corner often, mostly houses, trees. A big sun in the corner. Sometimes, a tiny figure on a bed, with 2 smaller figures standing beside it. He didn't say anything. But he understood what she was trying to keep close. That evening the hospital called. She had taken a turn. There was a complication. They didn't explain everything. Just said, she's stable now, but it was close. He didn't tell the girls right away. He waited until the morning. When he did, the older one stared at him. Eyes wide, but didn't cry. The younger one just climbed into his lap and held on. He let her stay there as long as she wanted. Later that day, he sat with both of them on the couch and said, "You're not going back yet. She needs more time." They didn't ask questions. Just nodded. He looked at them carefully. "Is there anyone else? Any family?" The older one shook her head. "Not that we know." That night after they were asleep, he pulled out his phone. He didn't call anyone, just stared at the screen. Messages blinked, missed calls, a deal waiting for his approval, travel plans. He typed a short message to his assistant. "Cancel everything this week." Then he turned the phone off. Days passed quietly. One morning, he found the older girl in the kitchen, trying to make tea. She burned her finger. He helped her run it under cold water. "Why were you doing that?" he asked. "You always make breakfast. You don't have to do that." "I know," she said. "But you look tired." That night, she helped him set the table. The younger one folded napkins and placed them next to the plates. It was a small thing. But the man hadn't used napkins in years. That evening, when the phone rang, it was the hospital again. Her condition had stabilized. Recovery was now likely. They estimated 2 more weeks. He sat on the balcony with that news. The city lights blinked in the distance. Somewhere far below, a car horn sounded. He didn't know why he felt relief so sharply. He didn't know why he cared so much. The next morning, the girls made their own beds. Without being asked. When he came home that evening, there was a piece of paper on the table. A note, written in careful, uneven letters. "Thank you for taking care of us. We hope you're not sad anymore." He didn't know what part made him pause the longest. The "thank you," or the guess that he had been sad. He hadn't said anything like that. But they had seen it. Maybe they saw it in how he stayed too quiet. Or how he never turned on the TV. Or how he always checked the front door twice, even when no one was coming. That night, after dinner, the younger one brought out a drawing. She had made a new one. 3 people. 2 small, 1 tall, holding hands under a big tree. "Is this your family?" he asked. She shrugged. "I don't know. I just drew it." He stared at it longer than he meant to. "Can I keep it?" he asked. She nodded and smiled. The next morning, he framed it. He hung the frame beside the kitchen. It was the only thing on the wall. When the girls noticed it the next morning, they didn't say anything. But they kept looking at it. That day he took them out. No big plan, just a quiet place by the sea. They walked along the shore. The girls picked up shells. The younger one ran ahead, then back again. The older one stayed close to him, silent but calm. They sat on a bench, watching the waves. He gave them ice cream. The younger one got it all over her hands. The older one helped clean her up. He checked his phone only once. There were 5 missed calls, all from his office. He didn't return any of them. "You used to come here a lot?" the older girl asked suddenly. He looked at her. "A long time ago. With your family." He didn't answer. She didn't ask again. On the way back, they passed a toy store. He asked if they wanted to go inside. The younger one looked at her sister, waiting for a signal. The older one nodded. They didn't grab anything. Just walked slowly through the aisles, touching things, but not asking for them. He chose a soft blanket with a cloud pattern. And 2 small stuffed toys. At checkout, the cashier asked, "For your daughters?" He didn't correct her. Back home, the girls helped unpack the bags. The younger one named the stuffed toy. The older one folded the blanket and placed it neatly at the edge of the couch. It became a small evening ritual. After dinner, they would sit under the blanket, watching a cartoon, the volume low. He would sit nearby, sometimes sipping tea, sometimes not saying a word. He realized he didn't need noise. Their quiet company was enough. One night, the older girl looked at him and said, "We can leave soon, right?" He nodded slowly. "When your mom gets better." She paused. "Do you want us to go?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I want your mom to get better." That was all. The next day, he received a message from the hospital. Her condition had improved. She was sitting up, talking. They would start physical therapy next, he told the girls after breakfast. The younger one clapped. The older one smiled, quiet but real. Later, when he was clearing the dishes, the older one stood beside him and said, "She's going to call today." He nodded. "Can we tell her we're okay?" "You should," he said. "And you?" she asked. "Are you okay now?" He looked at her. She was too young to ask a question like that. But she asked it like she meant it. "I think I'm better than I was," he replied. That afternoon, the phone rang. A video call. The girls sat on the couch, leaning close to the screen. Their mother's face appeared, tired, pale, but smiling. The younger one talked fast. The older one didn't say much, but she didn't look away either. Their mother asked, "Are you safe?" They both said yes. She said, "I'm sorry." They nodded. "I didn't know what else to do," she said, her voice shaking. "I just wanted you to be safe. I didn't want to scare you." "You didn't," the older one said. The mother looked at the man. He stayed quiet. Just nodded once. After the call ended, the girls went to draw. He stayed on the couch, staring at the now black screen. They were going to leave soon. He knew it. He had no right to ask them to stay. That evening, the older one helped make dinner. She asked how to chop tomatoes. He showed her slowly. After they ate, the younger one handed him a folded paper. Another drawing. This time it was a room with a table, 3 plates, a tall figure, 2 small ones. In the corner, she had drawn a small heart. He placed the paper inside the kitchen drawer. Not out of sight, just closer. Later that night, he sat on the balcony again. The lights of the city were still the same. But now they felt like something he could sit with, not something he had to escape. In the quiet, he heard small footsteps. The younger girl came out, dragging her blanket. "Can I sit here?" she asked. He nodded. She curled up beside him, resting her head on his side. "I don't want to go yet," she said, her voice low. He placed his hand lightly on her back. Said nothing. They sat like that a long time. Inside, the older girl turned off the kitchen light. She peeked out once, then let them be. The apartment didn't feel borrowed anymore. 2. That morning, he woke up earlier than usual. The apartment was quiet. The girls were still asleep on the couch under the cloud-patterned blanket. He stood in the kitchen for a while, making tea, listening to the stillness. Then he stepped out, locking the door softly behind him. He bought a few things: bread, cheese, fruit, and something sweet he used to eat as a child but hadn't in years. On the way back he saw a small plant shop and paused. He bought a small potted plant. Not because the apartment needed it, but because it felt right. When he returned, the girls were awake. The younger one was brushing her hair with her fingers. The older one was folding the blanket. They both looked at the plant as he placed it near the window. Neither said anything, but both smiled. He made breakfast while they watched cartoons on low volume. When he called them to eat, they came without delay. The younger one picked the fruit pieces first. The older one poured water for all 3 of them. They didn't talk much, but the silence was soft, not heavy. After breakfast, he said, "Let's not go anywhere today." They agreed. The girls spent most of the morning building something with paper, tape, and boxes. He worked at the table, reading something on his laptop but not really focused. Every now and then, the younger one brought him a piece of paper with scribbles on it. He took each one seriously, thanking her and placing it beside him like a document. Later, he made lunch, something simple. The girls helped set the table. After they ate, the older one said, "Can we bake something?" He checked the fridge. "Only if you like orange cake." They didn't know what that was, but they were excited anyway. He let them do most of the stirring and mixing. The younger one dropped some batter on the floor. She looked up quickly, expecting a reaction. He just handed her a cloth. She smiled and wiped it herself. While the cake baked, the apartment smelled warm. The girls sat on the floor, watching the oven through the glass door. He sat behind them on a stool just watching them. When the cake was ready, they let it cool for exactly 5 minutes before asking if it was cool enough now. He sliced it, gave them each a small piece, and watched them eat in quiet delight. In the afternoon, the phone rang. It was the hospital. "She's doing better," the voice said. "We'll start preparing her for discharge in a few days." He thanked them and ended the call. He didn't say anything right away. He waited until the girls had finished drawing more pictures and were sitting together on the couch. "Your mom is getting better," he said. The younger one gasped. The older one blinked a few times, then nodded. "She'll be home soon," he added. Neither said anything more. But both leaned against each other, a little closer than before. Later, when he was cleaning up the kitchen, the older one came and stood beside him. "Will she be okay alone?" she asked. "She'll have help," he said. "A nurse, for a while." The girl nodded slowly. "So we'll go back, Wes?" She looked down at her feet. "Maybe not right away." He didn't answer. That night, after dinner, the girls drew one last picture together. It was a window with the view from the apartment. In the corner, a small table. 3 cups. He didn't ask what it meant. He just taped it on the fridge beside the earlier ones. The next morning, he took them to the park again. It was warm. The younger one ran ahead, chasing birds. The older one walked beside him, quiet as usual. "She doesn't remember our dad," she said suddenly. He looked at her. "You do?" As she nodded. "But I don't talk about him." "That's okay," he said. She looked at him. "You don't talk about your family either." He smiled, a little. "That's true." They sat on a bench. The younger one returned, holding a flower. She handed it to him without a word. He placed it in his pocket like something important. That evening, they had dinner on the floor, picnic style. Sandwiches and juice. They laughed when the juice spilled and he didn't panic. They cleaned it up together, like it was nothing. Later, he opened the small suitcase they had brought. The same one with the broken wheel and taped corner. It was still near the door. He checked if it could be fixed. Probably not. But he didn't say that. He asked them to pack a few things just in case. The older one folded clothes. The younger one placed her stuffed toy gently on top. Before bed, the older girl asked, "Do you think she missed us?" He said, "I know she did." The next morning, the hospital called. She was ready. They didn't rush, they had breakfast like always. Then got dressed. He called for a car. On the way, the younger one looked out the window. The older one held the suitcase on her lap. He didn't talk much. Just sat with them still. At the hospital, their mother was in a wheelchair, but smiling. Her arms opened before her mouth did. The girls ran to her both at once. He stayed back, watching. She looked up and met his eyes. "Thank you," she said softly. He nodded. Nothing else. She looked different, not just from the hospital stay. She looked like someone who had lost something but found something else. He helped them into the car. The suitcase barely fit. The younger one insisted on holding her toy instead. As they drove away, the girls waved through the window. He stood there until the car disappeared from sight. Then turned, walked home, unlocked the door, and stepped into the now quiet apartment. The plant near the window had caught more light that day. He poured himself a glass of water, sat on the couch, looked around. The blanket was still folded at the edge. The drawings still on the fridge. The apartment wasn't empty, not really. Too, the soft blanket was still folded on the couch. The 2 stuffed toys were sitting on the cushion, facing the door. Like they were waiting. One of the drawings had slipped slightly out of the kitchen drawer. He didn't fix it. He walked from room to room that morning, not rushing anything. He touched the edge of the couch, adjusted the towel near the bathroom door, looked out the window at the street below. They had left. He had carried the suitcase again, just like that first day. Still taped at the corner, still dragging unevenly. It didn't feel any lighter. At the airport, he walked with them until the final gate. The younger girl held his hand the entire time. The older one stayed quiet. But when the final boarding call came, she turned and said softly, "Thank you." He couldn't speak, he just nodded. He stood by the glass, watching the plane taxi down the runway. When it disappeared into the sky, he turned and walked back without a word. No one was waiting at home. No staff, no calls, no meetings. He sat on the floor that evening. The same place where the blanket had once been spread out. He didn't turn on the lights right away. The city outside was still bright. He could hear traffic. A plane in the distance. A neighbor's door closing. But inside everything was still. He had spent years building quiet like this. Silence he could control. He used to think that was peace. Now it just felt like a hallway with no doors. His phone buzzed once. A message from the hospital. Their mother had been discharged. She was recovering well. He replied with a single word. Good. That night, he couldn't sleep. He made tea at 2 a.m. and sat at the balcony, staring at the empty chairs beside him. He didn't cry. He just waited for something to feel normal again. Days passed. Then a week. He returned to the office finally. Everything was the same. Schedules, reports, meetings. His assistant asked if he was feeling better. He said yes, but meant something else. He worked shorter hours. Ate lunch outside the building. Started taking calls in the open courtyard. One afternoon, he saw a father helping his daughter put on a backpack. It reminded him of the smaller girl. The way she had asked if he liked her drawing. The way she had curled up beside him on the balcony. He turned away and stared at his coffee. Later that week, a delivery arrived at his apartment. A padded envelope. No return name. Just a city he recognized. The one the girls had flown to. Inside was a folded letter. Written in a child's handwriting. It said, "Hello. We are okay. Mama says thank you. I drew this for you. I miss the ice cream." Beneath it was another drawing. 3 figures again. This time, they were outside under a sun. The tall one had sunglasses. One small one held a seashell. He placed it beside the first one in the drawer. That night, he slept better. Another week passed. He called the hospital once. Asked how she was doing. The nurse said she was home now, continuing therapy. He asked if he could speak to her. The nurse paused, then transferred the call. The voice on the other end was cautious. "You didn't have to call," she said. "I know. But thank you." He nodded, even though she couldn't see. "Are you okay?" "We're trying." He waited. Then said, "If you need anything." "I know," she said. Then after a pause, "They talk about you." He didn't reply. "My youngest says you made the best tea." He let out a breath that sounded like a laugh. "Would you ever visit this side?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," he said. "Should I?" The line went quiet. Then, "Maybe one day." He didn't plan the visit. It just happened. A business trip came up. Same region. He booked the extra train ticket without telling anyone. He didn't call ahead. He didn't even know the exact building. But he had the neighborhood name. And somehow he found it. A small street, narrow trees. Laundry hanging from balconies. Kids playing with a ball near the corner. He stood near a gate and looked up. It was quieter here. Then he heard a familiar voice. "Is that him?" He turned. The younger girl stood by the entrance, one hand holding a juice box. Her eyes went wide. "You came." He smiled. She ran to the door, shouting, "It's him, it's him." The mother came out next. She looked surprised, then slightly nervous. "I was nearby," he said. "You're very far from nearby," she replied, but she didn't sound upset. He held out a small bag. "I brought something." She took it politely. The older girl stepped out slowly. She didn't say anything, but her face changed. The kind of look that wasn't loud but meant everything. They invited him in. The apartment was small. 2 rooms. A fan in the corner, worn furniture. But it was clean. It smelled like lentils and something sweet. They sat on cushions on the floor. The younger girl showed him a new drawing. The older one poured water for him. Their mother said softly, "I didn't think you'd come." "I didn't either," he said. She smiled. They talked for a long time, not about sad things. Just small things. What the girls liked at school. What they were reading. The older one wanted to learn to cook. He stayed an hour. Maybe two. When he stood to leave, the younger girl held his hand again. Next time bring ice cream. I will, he said. As he stepped out, the mother said, you gave them safety. When I couldn't. He turned to her. They gave me something too. She nodded. I think we all needed each other. Months later, the girls visited his city again. This time with their mother. A proper trip. Just a few days. They stayed in a small hotel nearby. They had dinner at his place the first evening. The girls ran through the hallways like they hadn't been gone. The soft blanket was still there. So were the toys. He made them tea. They still loved it. The mother looked around his apartment and said, it feels less empty now. He said, it is, and maybe that was the point. Some connections don't start with big plans or long stories. Sometimes they begin with a broken suitcase. A question. A decision made in the quiet. Sometimes the smallest people carry the biggest meanings. He didn't need to explain it to anyone. He just lived it. And he kept the drawings in the drawer, always close. 2. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below. What did you learn from this story? Thanks for giving your precious time to read.